Defying Gravity. It's the biggest song from the biggest musical of the year, and if you don't know it yet, you should go check it out because this is really amazing music. I've admired Stephen Schwartz for many years as a composer, and there's so many amazing things that he does in this piece that we can learn from. Hi, my name is Jason Paul Peterson. I'm a professional concert pianist, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through Defying Gravity and show you some of the things about this music that are so amazing. So let's dive right in. The music starts like this. And there are already some cool things to talk about right there. Now, of course, when you think about the theme of the song, Defying Gravity, and you think about music that has to do with space, with flying, things like that, composers love to use what we call open chords. Those are chords that don't have any thirds in them. So if you look at this first chord, we have a D flat, A flat, D flat. Nothing else in there. There's no third to warm that chord up. That would be this F, but that's completely missing. Another great example of this, if you think of like 2001: A Space Odyssey, remember how that starts with this famous, this melody, right? From Richard Strauss. Same thing. We have a fifth and a fourth, no third anywhere in that chord. So it gives it this cool open sound that sort of is suggestive of flying, of outer space and those sorts of things. So we get this, and we land on another chord that Stephen Schwartz loves to use. This is a sus chord. It's what we call a sus2 chord. It's like a G flat major chord like this, but we're replacing the third with this second, which means that the chord has these sort of fourths in it, an A flat, a D flat, and a G flat. Again, that sort of open sound that is also in that sus2 chord. And by the way, he's also sort of harmonizing this stepwise bass line. The bass is going up like this, and it's a little bit uncertain. We have the sense of lifting up a little bit off the ground because we're coming from our tonic harmony up to our subdominant harmony, step 4, and then we fall back down and do it again. And we get this little melody up on the top, which I love. Especially, again, we have the open sonorities, and then this little half step, which is the 7th of a D flat chord, D flat 7 chord, major 7. Cool harmony. So we get this, and then the song starts. So what happens here is we get, again, this D flat to G flat progression, D flat, G flat. It's, again, like lifting off, starting to fly a little bit, and we get that 2 times in a row, and the third time we get a big leap, right? Finally, sort of escaping gravity and coming down to this third in the bass. So we have a D flat chord, but we have the F in the bass. So it's a chord, what we would call a chord in inversion. It's in first inversion. We have the F down here in the bass. And this chord is really, really cool. This is an unexpected chord. This is what we call in this key, because we're in the key of D flat, we would call this a C flat chord. It's a chord that doesn't actually belong to the world of D flat, because if I play a D flat major scale, I have a C in it, not a C flat. So in order to lower that C down a half step, that's why we call it, by the way, C flat and not B, because we're lowering the C a half step, we get this chord that sounds so foreign. It sounds like out of a different universe, sort of. I'll play it once again in context. Boom, 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 right? It's very cool. And now he starts going back and forth between D flat and C flat. D flat. But notice, and Stephen Schwartz loves to do this. So Stephen Schwartz, he loves to take normal chords and just tweak them a little bit so they're a little more interesting. So here we have our D flat chord, but we have the 4th. So it's a sus4 chord, and when we go down to the C flat chord, we have also a sus4 chord there. He's replacing the thirds of the chords with fourths, and it gives it that sort of open feeling. So just to compare, let's hear what that would sound like if he didn't do that. If he had just used D flat and C flat, also sounds perfectly fine. But to do this, D flat and C flat, just gives it a little extra panache, right? So we go back and forth between those. flat minor 7, a little change. That we've got that stepwise bass coming up again, stepwise, and we land on this big A flat sus chord. Now, one of the amazing things about music is that music sets up expectations of where a harmony is probably going to go, or where we as listeners expect it to go. And when it does something completely different, that's a really cool feeling. That's what we often call a deceptive chord progression, a deceptive cadence. So after when we get to this big A flat chord here, what we're expecting to happen, if you hadn't heard this song before, you would expect to go to D flat. A big dominant chord, step 5, we're in the key of D flat, and A flat is our 5th step of the scale, should fall down normally to 1. That's the sort of standard progression. But we get something very unexpected. We build up all this expectation and tension, and then we get a completely different chord. We get a B flat minor 7. It's what we call a deceptive cadence. And it's suddenly, the other cool thing about this, by the way, is that we're expecting like something sort of big, right? Big harmony, something like this. But instead, the music goes back right then and goes to a completely different chord. So we get this. Suddenly, we're pulling back and we're in this completely different world. We're in this minor world. More sus chords. Again. So what he's doing, notice, by the way, the text says right here, I think I'll try defying gravity. And our chord progressions are sliding around and they're sort of floating. We don't have the sort of clear, like those sorts of progressions that we would think of in a lot of classical music or pop pieces. This is really, really floating. It's sort of nebulous with the harmonies. We're going from a B flat minor 7 to G flat sus to A flat, and we don't ever really feel like we're quite home, at least at the beginning. We're expecting this D flat, and we don't get that until the third time. So we get, and again, same thing. And finally we arrive on the beginning of the song. Bum, 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 right? Again, with the sus chords. And now the piece just sort of starts rocking, right? Da, da, dum, bum, 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 bum. Unexpected C flat chord, right? C flat, D flat. Chord there, that B flat again. Same thing. And now, listen to this. Wow, crazy. Really, really crazy chord there. So, dun, 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 dun. What are we expecting? We're expecting that D flat. We're in the key of D flat after all. But instead we get dun, 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 dun. A major. So we're going from A flat, with the sus 4 here, by the way, using this top note, the D flat, to switch to a C sharp and the chord A major. And then this also sort of nebulous music up on the top. And the cool thing about this, we've got an A major chord down here. And up here, we have the notes of what we would call an E major 7 chord. So we've got one chord in the left hand and one chord in the right hand, two completely different chords. Very unusual, right? A major, E major 7 together create this sort of feeling of uncertainty, which is of course just what he's going for in this section. Really cool. And now I get the biggest surprise of this piece, and I'll tell you why in just a second. This is really, really crazy. Listen to this, what the singer does now when she sings Unlimited. Right? So what happens there, and then this is really, really cool. I listened to this song forever before I actually realized this. Listen to this melody here. Do do you know where it comes from? How about if I harmonize it like this? It's the melody from Somewhere Over the Rainbow. But I never actually caught on to that because until just recently, because the harmony is so different, the rhythm is different, everything has changed. But he actually takes this melody from Somewhere Over the Rainbow and incorporates it into this song. And fascinatingly, if you listen to how many notes there are in that melody before he deviates from the original song, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and now the original song would go down, but this melody keeps going up. 7, as I understand it, is the number of notes you can use without getting into copyright trouble of copying another melody, so that's maybe what he was thinking about right there. Learning piano from YouTube can be difficult. You get a little bit of information here, you get a little bit of information there, but putting it all together in a cohesive manner and learning step by step in a way that sort of makes sense can be really challenging. And that's why I created the PetersonPianoAcademy.com. It's a comprehensive piano course which features more than 200 videos arranged in technique, theory, and repertoire sections so that you can learn all you need to know about musical harmony, intervals, scales, chords, step by step. Technique, the exercises, the proper way to position the hands, and what you can do to improve your dexterity at the piano, and many pieces arranged level by level so that you'll have material that is suited to your ability, to your level of playing at the piano. Check it out, PetersonPianoAcademy.com. So now back to Wicked. Once we get this A chord with the E major 7 on the top, we are suddenly kind of headed toward the world of E major. I'll show you why. We get this unlimited. My future is C minor and A major, B major, and we're here. We feel like E is now our home base. And then Stephen Schwartz gives us some really cool chords. You notice how they all just sound kind of crunchy? They're like, we sort of know what they are. They're like normal chords that we're used to hearing, but there's something added that makes them just a little more prickly and really cool and keeps our attention. That's why I think I love this musical so much from the perspective of a musician. It's not just the same old stuff over and over again. Let's look at this one. This chord here. So we have like an A major 7 plus the 9th here, and we even have the sharp 11, which is this D sharp here. So it's an A major 9 with a sharp 11, and it's a really crunchy sound. And this one, really cool. This is like an F sharp major chord over a G sharp in the bass. So you could call it, we call those also sort of sus chords. And now we get to C minor 11, a C minor chord with the 9th, with the 11th. Also really crunchy sound. A minor, and now we get this, what we call a pedal tone in the left hand. That's where the bass stays the same and the harmonies above change. It adds a lot of tension and a lot of sort of, expectation of something bubbling, something about to happen. So listen to this. We keep the B flat in the bass and we get this above. And now he moves to this cool chord G sus 2. So we get the 2 on the top there. And nice thing about that is that it's related to our B chord that we have before, our B in the bass, by a third. And that's really cool movement, that motion by thirds. If you haven't seen my video on The Wizard and I, which is also from this musical, check it out. You'll notice there that he does the same kind of thing, a lot of movement by thirds. And big surprise to the C chord, right? So he's all over the place right here. We're on the B, G, C, and now it's like, whoa, what the heck is going on here? Such a cool motion there, harmonically speaking, from the C chord to suddenly G sharp minor. Like, how far apart can you get? C and G sharp minor are like opposite ends of the harmonic spectrum. And then we get this this theme that we know from before, but in a different key. So you think about this piece, and it started off in the key of D flat, and now we're in the world of B major. How in the world are we going to get back to D flat to end this piece? Well, this is really clever what he does. So we have this theme from the beginning, which takes us from B up to E with the obligatory sus chords there, and then D flat, and now we're back in that world of D flat from the beginning, going between our D flat and our G flat chords several times. C flat. These are real cool chords here, by the way. We get the E flat minor, D flat over F, D flat, and surprise again, C flat chord. That chord we talked about at the beginning. Going back between C flat and D flat, and now sliding up. Oh, sorry. A flat sus2. This is what we had before. And now we get this chord. And this chord is a really cool one. It's a G flat minor chord with the third of the chord in the bass. And let's look at what happens after that. And nobody is the text there. We get an A flat chord, a sus chord, sort of this harmony over this sort of G flat thing in the bass. So it's a nice crunchy chord. By the way, I want to point out, we're heading to the end of this piece, and we know we have to get back to D flat. And what he does is he keeps giving us one crunchy chord after the next, just thwarting our expectations over and over again, but pulling ever more and more towards D flat. Listen to these chords. This one, this one, this one. And finally, we arrive on our D flat chord. So what are these crazy chords? We've got, this is sort of an A sus over G flat. This we would call like an A flat minor 7 over, it's like a C flat major chord, which is actually in the A flat minor 7. So it's just sort of, I guess you could just think of it as a big A flat minor 7th chord. This is like a G flat chord with the 9th here in it, so it's sort of like G flat with the D flat in the bass. This one is that really, really dramatic minor chord, again with the 3rd in the bass, G flat minor with the 3rd in the bass. And now we get our dominant note in the bass. This is our 5th of the scale of the D flat scale. Sus chords, which add so much tension. This is a sus2 and sus4. We've got all the notes there. And heading back, and we conclude with some crazy chords there, kind of noodling around the main harmony. We've got our D flat chord, then we've got this C flat over B flat, really crunchy, and then G flat major over C flat in the bass. And our D flat chord finally brings us home. I hope you've enjoyed this little look at Defying Gravity. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.